Hi, my name is Justin Gingrich. I'm the school leader at Ignite Academy. Thank you for joining me today for the workshop, How to Choose the Right School for Your Child. So let's go ahead and get started. So I wanted to start today off with a quote that says, "All students can learn and succeed, but not in the same way and not in the same day." And that quote is by William Spady. And I chose this quote because it's a great summary of what school choice is all about. School choice is about finding the right school for every child to succeed. I've had the opportunity to work in public schools, charter schools, and private schools. And I know firsthand how different these schools can be. And so my goal with this workshop today is just to help give you some insights and tips from someone who's been in education for 10 plus years. That way you can pick the best school for your child. And so that brings us to the question of the day. How do I find the right school for my child? So today I'm going to walk you through a 6-step process that will help you to answer this question. And so step 1 is understanding the goals you have for your child. And these goals could be goals for the end of elementary, the end of high school, or even when they are adults. And so you might be thinking to yourself, why would the first step in finding the right school be identifying the goals I have for my child? And the reason I want to start there is because your child will spend about 1,000 hours each year in school. So that means from kindergarten until they graduate, they will spend over 13,000 hours in school. That is a lot of time. And so with our kids spending so much time in school, we want to make sure this time is not wasted, or worse yet, have a negative impact on the person we want them to be. And so by identifying the goals we have for our children, okay, we can pick the school that will help them to reach these goals and not deter them from these goals. And so as I was doing this, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. Her name's Emma. I was thinking through, what are the goals? What are the dreams I have for her? What type of person do I want her to be when she graduates high school? And so I went ahead and I wrote those down, and I wanted to share them with you today. And so the first goal I have for my daughter is that she is strong in her faith in Christ. The next goal I have for her, that she is part of a strong community, community within my family, community within my church, community within her friends, community within maybe teammates or any other extracurricular, activities that she decides to pursue. My third goal is that she is healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. And then my fourth goal for her is that she has an understanding of the gifts and talents, that God has given her, and then also how to use those gifts in the next step of her life. How will they be developed? How will she be using them? And goal 5 is that she is properly prepared, educated, and trained to take that next step in her life, whether it's college, whether it's entering the workforce, whether it's doing something like the Peace Corps, whatever path God has laid out for her. I want to make sure she's properly trained, educated, and ready to go for that next step. And so after you've identified the big picture goals you have for your child, step 2 is, what are some of the specific needs that you have for your child and your family? These could be such things as, me and my spouse, we both work until 5 p.m. And so we need a school where our child can, then go into aftercare or is partnered with an aftercare program. So that way, we can finish our work and then pick them up after, work is over. Another example might be, maybe, your family received a scholarship from the state, whether it's the McKay Scholarship, the Hope Scholarship, the Family Empowerment Scholarship. Not all schools accept those scholarships if you're looking at the private school route. So make sure that, the schools you're looking at actually accept those scholarships. Another example is maybe distance from home. Maybe for you, you're willing to drive 30 minutes. Some families are willing to drive 45 minutes. Some families maybe want to keep it within 10 minutes. So those are just some examples, but identify what are the specific needs for your child and your family that you're looking for within a school. And so now that we've identified the goals we have for our child, we have identified the specific needs we have for our family, now we can start looking at the different school options. And so in today's educational world, there's so many choices, and that's why we call it school choice. And so it can be very confusing at times to understand what these different options offer and how are they actually different. And so I just want to walk you through a brief overview of the different type of school options. And so the first big set of schools options are public school options. These include such things as traditional public school, magnet public school. These would be such things as, like, here name medical magnets, art magnet school, the STEM magnet school. The next option is charter schools. Charter schools are public schools. Okay, they have their own governing school board, but they are still a public school. They're funded through tax dollars. And then the last kind of main public school option is online public school. And so for me personally, I've had the opportunity to work in traditional public schools. A magnet charter school is a STEM-focused charter school, and then also a blended learning charter school where we had a blend of online learning and classroom learning. So the kids spend about half their time online learning and half their time in the classroom learning. And so that's my experience in public school. And so the next main set of school options are private school options. And so the first kind of main one is non-religious schools. So these schools, they can have a similar setup to public school, and they look very similar. They're just a private school, where others are very specialized. They might be something like, Montessori, Waldorf. Maybe some are, specifically for kids who are labeled special education, need some additional services and help. Other ones might be like language immersion. So those are just some examples of non-religious schools. And then obviously there are religious schools that make up a large portion of private schools. These could be parochial schools, Christian schools, Jewish schools, or any other, religious type of school. And then there's also a blend school when it comes to a blend of private school and homeschooling, where maybe, kids spend 2 to 3 days at home, doing homeschooling, then they spend 2 to 3 days at the actual school learning in person. So it's a blend of, in-school learning and homeschool learning. And so within private school, I've had the opportunity to work in the Christian school environment. So from my experience in both private school, public school, having friends who are in both these sectors, and just, talking to them, visiting these schools, seeing these schools firsthand, here are, from my experience, the 3 main differences within the schools. And so first is all public schools are mandated to take the state's standardized test. And the test that they take then, that's how they're graded. And so public schools, they get, at least in the state of Florida, they get a grade from the State Department of Education. Those grades come from the standardized test. And so they have to take the state of Florida standardized test because that is how they are graded. Because, that is the focus of the school grade. Schools want to get good grades. And because of that, their emphasis is on state testing. It's not by choice of necessarily the teachers and the principals. They want to do what's best for the kids. However, again, they are graded based on those state test scores. And so their main focus is ensuring the kids do well on the state test, because the kids are judged that way, the teachers are judged that way, the schools and the school districts are all judged based on that test score. And so their main focus is preparing the kids to do well on that state test. The next main difference is public schools cannot advocate and teach a specific religious belief, whereas private schools can teach and advocate for a specific religious belief, even though not all of them do that. Some are non-religious private schools, as I mentioned earlier. And then the last difference is public schools are free, where private schools, they cost money unless you are fortunate enough to get a full scholarship, whether that's from the state, you get state scholarship and that covers the full tuition, or the private school is willing to give you, a scholarship that covers the full tuition and fees. If not, you are paying for private school. And so one thing I just want to kind of mention with that is sometimes cost, can be a barrier, for families who are, looking into the private school area. One thing I always like to tell families who are looking at private school, because I think that's best for their child, but they're not sure if they can afford it. There are ways that you can help reduce the cost of tuition to make it more affordable for your family. So there's such things as, within the state of Florida at least, and there are other states in the US that offer state scholarships or voucher programs. So within the state of Florida, for example, a typical, if you get one of the scholarships, they offer the Gardner Scholarship, the Hope Scholarship, the McKay, the Family Empowerment, and the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship. Those scholarships typically pay $6,000 or more. So if you're going to a school that, let's say it's $8,000 and you get at least $6,000, that covers a good portion of the tuition for that school, which makes it much more affordable. Also, a lot of private schools are willing to offer their own scholarship or like financial aid discount, just like colleges do. Another thing you can do is maybe you can, do a type of barter, whether, it's a professional service you can offer, or maybe even offering to help clean and take some of the janitorial services, off the school's plate in place of paying some tuition. In addition, the federal government changed some things where you can now use 529 money to help pay for private school tuition. There's also educational savings accounts. You can always look at your family budget. Maybe there's ways you can, allocate some money into private school. And so if private school is important to you, then look at the different options of ways you can subsidize or, get it cheaper and reduce the cost of tuition if you think that is the best option for your child. Okay, now that we have a basic understanding of the two main groups of, public schools and private schools, now we can start getting into the specific schools. So within your area, you want to start actually looking at the specific schools. So that's step 4. So, and I would recommend the first step in this process of researching schools would be to go online and just look at the schools. There's so much information available online now from your computer. You can go to the school's website. You can go to their social media pages. You can look at reviews, whether it's, great schools, whether that's, those are private school review sites, whether it's Google reviews or Facebook reviews, read through the different things online. And once you come out with maybe a list of, after looking at those schools, come up with a list of maybe 2 or 3, the next step would be to actually schedule a tour, go see the school, talk with the school in person. In addition to that, I would recommend talking to the parents of a current student at that prospective school. Having a parent's perspective is such a blessing, just because, they're going to give you a different point of view than the school will. And so if you have a friend, or somebody who goes to that school, maybe see if you can do coffee or just maybe talk on the phone and just ask them some questions. Right now with COVID-19, I know things are a little different. A lot of schools are not currently open for tours in person. So if you really do want to see a school, I know a lot of schools, our school included, we're doing virtual tours. So if you still want to see our school, we will offer a virtual tour. That way you can see the school, virtually at least, and we can still talk with you. You can ask us your questions. So even though it's not as good as an in-person tour, at least, you still get to see the school, you get to talk with the school, and you can learn more about the school. In addition, our school, we're offering a Coffees with Mom. It's going to be a virtual Coffees with Mom, unfortunately. No in-person right now, but it's still a coffee with some of our current moms at our school, because we know how important it is that you talk with parents of current students. That way you can learn about the school from a different perspective. So again, getting that perspective from both the school and the parent helps you learn more about the school and making sure you make the right choice for your child. So one tip, just to give you when you're talking to schools or talking to parents, make sure you're keeping in mind the goals and the needs that you identified in step 1 and step 2. It's so easy maybe get sidetracked. Maybe you're focusing on things that really aren't in alignment with the goals. or the needs. So always make sure that you're bringing it back to the goals that you identified and the needs that you identified as the most important things. And that brings us to step number 5. So step 5 is selecting the right school. And so when it comes to selecting the right school, again, we want to look at the big picture. Again, our kids will spend 13,000 hours in school from kindergarten through 12th grade. We want to make sure the schools that we're selecting for them will help them to reach those goals that we have for them. Again, we want our kids to be so much more than just test scores and grades. And so making sure you pick schools that will help them accomplish that goal. So keep that in mind and keep your family's needs in mind when selecting the right school. And I know this can feel like a lot of pressure in selecting the right school for your kid. And I just want you to take a step back and remember you can always change schools. So even if you start a school, let's say, your child's entering kindergarten next year, you go through these steps, you've identified what you think is the best school, you enroll them. Halfway through their kindergarten year, if you're like, man, this is not the best school for my child and our family, you can always withdraw them and transfer them. We had a young girl this year at our school. She actually went to 2 schools previously and then enrolled with us about 2 months into the school year. She did phenomenal. Again, it wasn't an ideal situation for her or her parents, but they were able to find the right fit for their daughter. And so again, if you go to a school, you think you found the right one, and it ends up not being that, you can take a deep breath, you can still transfer schools. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Identify your goals, identify your needs, do your research. Based on that, pick what you think would be the best school. And then worst case scenario, you can always change later. And our children are resilient. Kids are very resilient. They might struggle for a week or two in the transition. But again, we're trying to keep the big picture in mind. Keep in mind when they graduate high school, when they're going to be adults, a transition from one school to the next, they'll be okay. And so the last step after you've picked that school, you enroll them in the school, is stay involved in your child's education. Remember, schools can only do so much. You need to view the school as a partner. You and the school are in partnership in your child's education. So make sure, no matter how good the school is, you always stay involved. Again, it is a partnership between the school and the parents in providing the best possible education for that child. And so just as a review, again, of our 6 steps. Step 1, understand the goals you have for your child. Step 2, identify the needs of your child and your family. Step 3, understand your child's schooling options. Step 4, research the schools. Step 5, select the right school for your child. And then step 6, always stay involved in your child's education. And so I just want to give you a few bonus tips here. So based on my time as an educator, I wanted to share some areas of caution with you in selecting schools. And so the first one is, don't get too focused on facilities and technology. The teachers and leaders of the school are more important. The people, the staff at the school are significantly more important than the building and the technology, of the school. So please remember that. It's so easy to get caught up in what technology they have. Do they have smart boards? Do they have iPads? What type of computer lab do they have? What type of, what does their facility look like? The people of the school make the difference. Next, don't get too focused on school curriculum and the academic schedule, different academic programs they offer. School culture and school community are more important. And then the last one is, don't get too focused on a school's academic data. Schools will throw around maybe certain numbers, number of kids who get accepted into college, maybe how many kids pass the state test, or all these different data points. And I'm not saying they're not important, but always keep in mind the long-term goals you have for your child when selecting a school. Again, keep in mind, we're talking about 13 years of education. We're talking about over 13,000 hours. Okay, our main goal is preparing them and educating them so that way when they leave high school, whether they go to college, whether they go into the military, whether they go into the workforce, or whatever area they go into, making sure they are properly prepared educated, ready to succeed and thrive in that next step in their life. So we just went through these 6 steps. We just went through, some areas of concern and stuff like that. Again, my goal for this workshop was to help you in choosing the best school for your child. So whether you were interested in my school, Ignite Academy, whether you're interested in, the local public school options, whether it's charter school, the magnet school, other private school options, I want to be here to help you. The reason I got into education, was to see kids succeed. I love seeing kids learn. I love seeing them grow and mature, and I love seeing them graduate and be successful. And I've been in education long enough now. I've had kids that have graduated, they've gone to college, and they've gone beyond. And the most important thing is that, when they leave this educational system, that they're successful, they're thriving. And so whether your child, attends my school or not, I want to be here to help you. And so my email address is up here, jgingrich@igniteacademy.education. And if you just need someone to bounce some ideas off, questions, please reach out. I want to be here to help you, to serve you, because again, if our kids can, get the best education possible, it provides the best future not only for them, but for our community and for our country. And so I just want to thank you for, joining me today for this workshop. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.